During the first block, if you are training for hockey, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the volume that you're going to be doing is going to be a lot lower, but your intensity is going to be a lot higher. As you get closer to the season, you're going to ramp up the volume, you're going to decrease the intensity. The work to rest ratio. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with TB4Work, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys Auston Matthews' 12-week HIIT program for hockey. In full disclosure, I'm not Auston Matthews' coach. However, I have coached NHL players in the past, and if Auston did hire me to be his coach, this is the kind of HIIT program that I would write for him to get him ready for the season. And I've already gone through the program over the last 12 weeks, so I'm not going to go through the actual 12-week program. I'm just going to be breaking down the methodology behind why exactly I structured it this way, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how exactly to write a HIIT program for hockey for your own specific needs. Now, with regard to the actual structuring of the program, I broke it down into 3 phases. Each phase is 4 weeks in duration, and every week it's going to change a little bit. The reason that I structured it this way, in the first block, the first 4 weeks, which is in black right over here, that is when the volume is going to be at its absolute lowest and the intensity is going to be at its absolute highest. Then, the next 4-week block in blue right over here, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the volume a little bit, but we're going to decrease the intensity. And then in the final 4-week block right over here that's in red, that is when the volume is going to be at its absolute highest and the intensity is going to be at its absolute lowest. And the reason that I structured it this way, we're going to get into it in a couple seconds, but first real quick, like the video and comment down in the comment section, as it would really help me out and help out with the algorithm. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the content. Now, let's get into why exactly I structured it this way. It is all based off of Auston Matthews' stats. Right over here, I have his 5 season stats that he played with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have the year that he played over here. Then next to that, we have the total minutes that he played per season. We have his average minutes per game, the average minutes per period, his work to rest ratio, the duration of the shifts that he plays on the ice. Then we have the amount of shifts that he plays per game, and then the average shifts that he has per period. The reason that those numbers are going to be very important, particularly the ones in red, is because we're going to use those to determine what's going to be the best work to rest ratio, how many intervals should he perform, and what exactly should the intensity be. Now, with regard to the most important ones, the minutes per period is going to be very important. The work to rest ratio is going to be very important. The average length of the shift is going to be very important. And the average shifts per period, those are going to be your 4 most important metrics. So when we take a look at his first 2 seasons, they deviated a little bit from the last 3. So we didn't bother using those for the program because we wanted to do something that's closer to what he's been doing for the last 3 seasons. In his first 2 seasons, you could see that the average shift per game is a lot lower. He was doing 45 seconds and 47, whereas in the last 3 seasons, it's been pretty consistent. 54 seconds, 55 seconds, and 54 seconds on average for a duration of a shift. Then, when we take a look at the shifts per period, same thing. The first 2 seasons, they deviate a little bit from the last 3. In his first 2, it was 10 to 11 and 10 on average per period. And then his last 3 seasons, he's been averaging 8 to 9 shifts per period. So we want to make sure that when we are looking at the number of intervals, we somewhat go around that 8 to 9 interval range. And then when we are looking at the duration of the actual work to rest ratio, we want to make sure that he's accumulating roughly around that 55 seconds worth of work. And now we're going to get into the actual breakdown of why exactly it's structured this way. So the reason that the volume is going to be a lot higher in the beginning of the season is because he's not competing yet. So what we want to do is we gradually want to increase the volume throughout the season to get him to the point where he's going to be accumulating enough volume that it's going to be similar to what he's going to be doing on the ice. So the volume during that first 4-week block, it's going to be a little bit lower. And because the volume is going to be a little bit lower in that first 4 weeks, that means that the intensity is going to be a lot higher. And because the intensity is a lot higher, that means the work to rest ratio is going to be a lot longer as well. Because when intensity is higher, you need a longer work to rest ratio to allow yourself to recover. So with his average work to rest ratio throughout his entire career, regardless of the season, it's always been pretty consistent. It's been roughly 1 to 4.4 in his first season. His second, third, and fourth seasons, it was 1 to 4.5. And then in his last season, the 2021-2022 season, it was a 1 to a 4.6 work to rest ratio. So we want to try and get somewhere around that 1 to 4.5 or 1 to 4.5 work to rest ratio. In this first block right over here, what we're doing is a 1 to 5 ratio. The reason we're doing 1 to 5 work to rest is because volume is lower and intensity is higher. So because the volume is lower and the intensity is higher, he's going to need a lot more time to recover. So we're going to go a little bit more than what he would actually do during the actual season. Then, during the second 4-week block, now we're starting to mimic what he would do during the actual season. During this second week block over here, this second phase, that for the weeks 5 through 8, what we're doing is a 1 to a 4.5 work to rest ratio, and that's going to mimic what he actually does throughout the season. And then in the final block, right over here, 9, 10, 11, and 12, we are doing a 1 to 4 ratio. The reason that we are doing a work to rest ratio that is lower than what he would normally do throughout the actual game is because let's say he were to go out and for whatever reason, he is not able to get that 1 to 4.5 work to rest ratio on average. We want to make sure that he is able to acclimate to that and he's able to adjust his body. So by doing a 1 to 4 as opposed to a 1 to a 4.5, he's going to make it, it's going to be a lot easier when he gets on the actual ice. So then when he does get that 1 to 4.5, it's going to be a lot easier for him to recover, and it's just going to make it that much easier when he's actually on the ice. So we're doing a higher work to rest ratio than he would in the normal season during the first chunk. During the second chunk, we're mimicking what he would do during the regular season. And then during the last chunk, we're getting a little bit of that, we're taking a little bit of that rest away just to help him get his body ready. That way, if something were to happen on the ice and he's not able to rest the amount of time that he would normally need to rest, then he's going to be prepared for that. Then, the next thing we're going to look at is how many minutes is he playing per game. With regard to the minutes, he averages about 8 minutes per period. So because he's averaging 8 minutes per period, we want to make sure that cumulatively, the amount of work that he's doing is around that 8-minute mark, and then we're going to go plus or minus a couple minutes depending on where exactly we are in throughout the HIIT program. During the first blocks, we are going to be doing a lot less volume. So because we're doing a lot less volume, what happens is during this one, he's going to be able to push himself a lot harder. Then, once we start getting closer to the actual end, this is when the volume is going to be a lot higher. And because the volume is a lot higher, over here, we're doing more work than he would normally do in a period on the ice. So typically, he would do about 8 minutes per period on the ice. When we get to that final 12th week, he's going to be doing about 10 minutes of total work. And that's going to be really, really beneficial because if you're used to doing 8 minutes on the ice and then when you're practicing, you're doing 10 minutes, then when you get on the ice, 8 minutes isn't going to seem so bad when you've been pushing yourself to do 10 minutes throughout the rest of the camp. So that is why we ended up doing it that way. Then the next thing we want to look at is the average length of the shift. The average length of his shift, it averages at about 55 seconds. So we want to try and get to around that 55-second mark. So what we do is every single week, what we're going to do is we start with 45, 50, 55, and then we bump it up to 60, and we keep doing that. And then in every block, we go back down. So we go back to 45, 50, 55, 60, 45, 50, 55, 60, and we gradually decrease the intensity as we increase the volume. The reason this is going to be beneficial is because during the first week, 45 seconds, that's about 10 seconds lower than his average shift. So because it's lower than his average shift, he's going to be able to push himself a lot harder during that 45 seconds than he would for those 55 seconds. So because he could push himself a lot harder, what that means is when he does get to up to that 55 seconds, doing 55 seconds at the intensity that he normally would, it's not going to be that bad. So that's why it's going to be beneficial to do that and gradually increase the timing. And then the reason that we're doing 60 on the final one is because 55 seconds is his average shift. Let's say he goes out on the ice and for whatever reason he's not able to make a change. He has to stay longer than 55 seconds. We're going to want to make sure that he doesn't always get used to just staying for 55 seconds. We want to make sure that if something happens where he's not able to get off the ice, he's able to push himself for a few extra seconds. So that's why we added a little bit of additional time to the intervals toward the end of the program. And that is why basically we ended up structuring it that way. So again, during the first block, if you are training for hockey, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the volume that you're going to be doing is going to be a lot lower, but your intensity is going to be a lot higher. As you get closer to the season, you're going to ramp up the volume, you're going to decrease the intensity. The work to rest ratio, you're going to start with a higher work to rest ratio than you would in the normal season, and then as you get closer to the season, you're going to try and get closer and closer to mimicking that work to rest ratio. And then with regard to the actual intervals, you want to make sure that the number of intervals that you're doing are going to mimic the number of periods that you are performing on the ice. So before as you start getting into your prep, the intervals are going to be lower than what you normally would do. And then toward the end of the program, as you get closer to the season, you want the intervals to be a little bit higher than what you would normally do on the ice. In case something happens and you need a few extra shifts, you're not going to be tired and your body's going to be prepared for it. And then the final thing is with regard to the actual work duration. The work duration, early on in each of the different chunks, you want to make sure that you're doing less work than you would during the normal season, because you're going to be able to push yourself harder. And because you could push yourself harder, then when you start getting into those higher durations like that 60 seconds isn't going to seem that bad. And that is pretty much why exactly I structured it this way. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions down in the comments section so I can help you guys out. And once again, if you guys are interested in helping support the channel, or if you are interested in learning how to design your own programs, consider becoming a member and checking out that program design lecture series playlist. Again, at the time of filming this video, there are 47 videos with over 11 hours worth of program design content. New videos are going to be added regularly, and it is the exact same information that I teach in my program design course. Next Monday, 2 o'clock p.m., I'm either going to be going through another HIIT program, or I'm going to be doing something else. If you guys are bored of these HIIT programs, let me know and I'll change up the format, but that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to keep making these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I'm going to be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.